now to introduce our speakers for today's event. Tim Peters is the Director of Marketing at Intela Response, a 24/7 company. Brian Coma is the VP and Customer Experience Practice Leader at Verint. Brad Snedeker is the Innovation Center Manager at Calabrio. And Tim Picard is the CMO at New Voice Media. To review the speakers' bios, please click on the arrow under the speakers' photos. So now, without further ado, let me pass the event over to our first presenter, Tim Peters, Director of Marketing at Intela Response, a 24/7 company. Welcome to the broadcast, Tim.
Well, thanks very much for having me, David. I think this is a really exciting topic, and I'm happy to be here. What I wanted to focus on first this afternoon was some recent insights I've actually put together from polling analysts in the customer experience and customer journey facing practices. So I thought that might be interesting to just share some of the more interesting feedback I've received as I've been polling some folks in the actual industry itself. So let me just dive right in and proceed with sharing some of the more interesting research I've discovered. Some of the more interesting insights that I've uncovered when speaking to analysts over the past couple of months, I put together about 7 here that I wanted to share this afternoon. And the first one that I found, interesting is that it's all about understanding the customer journey. Digital interactions from a large proportion of the customer journey are becoming more and more critical, and it's only when an organization has a solid understanding of what these digital journeys look like can you then start to begin to improve that actual experience for customers. So I think it's really important to take pause and understand what's happening at your specific organization. This stat I found quite interesting itself, that 67% of folks, of your customers are generally starting on your corporate website first when they're looking for information on a product or service. That may or may not be true for everyone here today who's joined us, but that trend towards digital is not going away. So I think it's really important as a foundation to start to understand that journey and what channels, what are those primary drivers of those interactions themselves, and more it's becoming digital. And so I think that's just to here really highlights the importance of understanding what's happening on your corporate website. Okay, just moving on. So really recognizing the primary aspects of mobile and how important that is, with the mobile devices being so deeply woven into the fabric of each of our everyday lives. Companies need to deliver that same type of consistent world-class support through the mobile device, just like any other channels. And another interesting statistic that 75% of our consumers believe that companies should make those answers to those key customer support questions available by smartphones. So again, ask yourself, what type of experience are you giving your customers on mobile devices, on tablets? Do they have access to some sort of knowledge base to get those answers to self-serve? Another really important foundation is to do that self-assessment and see where your company currently stands. In reducing customer effort, Matt Dixon has really pioneered the research in this area, showing that going above and beyond in your service delivery can actually have a negative impact on customer loyalty. So, there's a huge implication there where we think we have to surprise and delight our customers, and it's just not the case. Most customers are just looking for quick answers to their questions and can move on with their day. And there's, for some brands, potentially maybe there is some benefit to going above and beyond if you're maybe a high-end retailer or a high-end hotel chain, for example. But in most cases, your customers are leading a very busy life, and they're just looking for quick, accurate answers and moving on with their day. And so if that's the case, again, it's really important to look in the mirror. Where are you expanding your efforts? Are you looking to help reduce that effort for customers, or are you focusing on all of these bells and whistles and the latest fads when maybe a quick win and what your customers are really looking for is that reduction of effort, making it easy for them to interact with you and get answers to their support questions. Okay, number 4, so virtual agents and self-service technology can actually start to drive revenue for your organization as well. So automatically serving offers for customers that match to their intent can really help in terms of that customer journey and helping folks find the relevant information they're looking for. we think back to what self-service was even a few years ago, it was FAQs or site search, but there's so much intent there if you have the proper solution in place to really understand that customer support issue, that you can really service the customers and not only provide the support information they're looking for, but also such things as cross-sell and upsell efforts as well, really helping the customer to get the information they need, and for the organization, monetizing that customer experience also. Okay, moving on to number 5. So the live agent channel needs optimizing. If you're able to right channel folks through self-service, which customers more and more prefer, you can really then fine-tune what's happening in the live agent environment, empowering those agents to focus on those truly complex type issues and the high-value issues as well. So cross-sells and upsells, and getting away from having your best agents focusing on things that could be serviced through self-service, through the web, or through a mobile app. And again, if you look at the stat there, 67% of customer support calls originate online on your website. How many of those could you right channel through more advanced self-service offerings for your customers, which they want because they want to move on with their day, and then allow your agents to work on exciting and interesting support cases, not mundane, simple FAQ type stuff again and again, and then allow those agents to truly add value, to be upselling, to be cross-selling, and not having your agents work on stuff that should be going through the self-service channel itself. Okay, moving on to number 6, the demand for actionable customer data is exploding. So I think we've all experienced this as customer experience experts, that a significant pull for demand for that type of data that we have access to. You know, folks are really looking for that, expecting that to come from the customer service and customer experience department. So, you know, what are you doing to create actionable insights for the rest of your organization? And there's new tools that you'll hear about today from the different folks on the webinar that will help you actionize that data and help get it into the right hands of your organizations. Okay, and moving on to number 7, predictive analytics, and how that can support the customer journey as well. So when you're looking at insights gleaned from all of these customer interactions, how are you using those to continually optimize that customer journey and customer experience? With so many customers now self-directing through journeys online, it leaves that digital footprint. And so what are you doing with that information to be able to consistently improve that digital journey for your customers? So I hope that was interesting, just in terms of some high-level insights from the folks at organizations like Forrester and what they're thinking about. And what I want to talk about quickly is what we do at Intela Response. And you know, our focus is really that first point of contact where folks are going to your website and beginning that customer journey, and what can you do to help them there and right channel them and help those tier 1 support issues so folks aren't having to call into your contact center or email you, and slow down that customer experience and add additional cost to your support channels as well. So this is our solution answers, and what it does is provide one exact company-approved answer to customer questions. So it's able to understand the intent in those natural language questions and deliver an answer with a 90 to 95% accuracy rate. And normally what happens with our customers, they're able to reduce calls and emails by 30 to 50% by deploying this type of technology on the web and on their mobile devices. So if you're getting millions of customers per month, or there's lots of those tier 1 type questions being asked, imagine what you could do, what the impact would be on your contact center if you could in 90 days pull out 30% of those calls going into your contact center, because they are tier 1 support questions that really should be able to be answered on your website itself. And what you can see here is our voices solution, which is on the back end of things, and it's able to compile those millions of customer questions being asked on a monthly basis. And there's some just fabulous insights there. It's true voice of the customer insight. It's not filtered. It's not surveys. You're getting that exact insight and intent from your customers. And you can look at that in real time and get real-time alerts. And there's just fabulous information that's coming directly from your customers in this area. For example, you can see the actual customer journey path itself. So if the customer asks question A, question B, question C, what's happening there? Should they have to ask that many questions to get their correct answer? Maybe you can improve your website, for example, so they're not having to continue to look for this information. Or maybe a customer asks about a specific product and has some sort of confusion. You can get alerts on this type of information in real time, and it's very powerful. So just to wrap things up, this is a customer of ours, BC Hydro, which is one of the largest utilities in North America, and they deployed the Intela Response virtual agent technology just over a year ago. And in terms of the results they've seen, in that first year, the solution answered just over 700,000 customer questions, so diverting those folks from having to write an email, from having to call into their contact center. So it's a very powerful solution. You know, the logic behind of the deployment as well was not simply the reduction, but also empowering customers who are going to the website first. So you get the benefit of potential cost reductions, but also you're dramatically improving the customer experience by allowing them to ask a question in their own way, in their own natural language, and get that one answer in return. And it provided some great insights for them with our Voices solution. They were able to get a whole bunch of interesting stuff that they weren't getting through other channels. Their customers were interested in solar power. They were interested in improving the actual billing experience online. They weren't happy with the existing interface and, you know, had a lot of questions about how to answer the bills and different things, and it was actionable. So they were able to take this information and improve how they were communicating both online and through direct mail and different channels to make sure that their customers were getting the information they needed. So I'm going to wrap things up there. I just wanted to hopefully introduce folks to virtual agent technology like Intela Response. And if you would like to learn more, I'd be happy to give folks more of a deeper dive on the technology and how you can use it to improve that web customer journey. Feel free to email me at what you can see up on the screen there, info@intelaresponse.com, and I'd be happy to chat with you further. And with that, David, I will turn things back over to you. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Tim. Now let's pass the event over to our next presenter, Brian Coma, Vice President and Customer Experience Practice Leader at Verint. Welcome to the broadcast, Brian.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Tim. I think there was some great material. Just by way of background, I'm a practitioner. I work with dozens of companies around the globe on helping them improve their customer experience program. And I want to talk to you today about customer journey mapping, because as I talk to VPs of customer experience, heads of operations, chief customer officers, customer journey mapping comes up again and again as something that people should be looking at, that they are looking at. And so I wanted to touch on a couple of things today that I think are important as you try and look at the customer experience for your organization. And let's just define very briefly what a customer journey map is. Well, it's fairly simple in that it graphically represents how a customer interacts with your organization. And even though that sounds simple, as you're aware, because of the various silos that you might have, whether it's the web, the contact center, chat, lots of different ways for people to interact with you, it can get quite complex in terms of how those interactions occur. But what's important about a journey map is it can help you identify what we call the key interaction points with customers by channel. And when you're talking to people within the organization who don't necessarily live customer experience every day, it's a very powerful means of communicating in a very simple fashion the experience from the customer's viewpoint. I want to emphasize that point, from the customer's viewpoint, because if you look at major analyst firms like Gartner and Forrester in particular wrote a book several years ago called Outside In. This is a great way of taking that outside-in view of how a customer is interacting with you. And what this does is it allows you to identify process issues that you may have, channel problems, opportunities for improvement, really lots of different data points that you can use to very rapidly identify what's going right and maybe what's going not so right within that customer interaction. Now, it's also important to note that journey maps are living documents that evolve over time, because your customer journey evolves over time. People start picking up on different channels. Mobile is obviously a very significant component for most organizations today, and you want to be able to take advantage of these things as they evolve. You also have to look at channels as they evolve in different parts of the world, because I'm sure many of you today are part of global organizations, and it's not necessarily the same in Asia, as the journey in Asia may not be the same as what somebody in North America or Europe participates in. So what does a journey map look like? On your screen is a fairly simplified view of a journey map. And you'll see on the left-hand side the different channels that people are using to interact with the organization. This happens to be a relatively generic journey map. You'll notice that they've got 3 channels on this one. There may be many more that you want to incorporate. It could come in from the contact center agent, it could come in from an IVR, or it could be initiated on the web. But then to take a look at the various components of the activity. What type of activity? In this case, in the lower left-hand corner, we've got a policy inquiry. This happens to be a journey map for an insurance company. And then track that through to determine how successful or unsuccessful that individual was in their interaction with you. And when you do things like correlate their journey with things like survey results, NPS or Net Promoter Score is probably one of the more popular things that people use to manage that customer journey, or to at least identify what we call advocacy. Would they be willing to recommend you to a friend or a colleague? When you start correlating that and other factors, purchase, repurchase data against the customer journey, you start to build a very complete view of what that customer is doing, how they're interacting with the organization, and very importantly, what might be predictors of customer success over a period of time. So how would you start with a customer journey map? It's an important element of the overall customer experience program. It's not the only element, but I would encourage you to think about 3 things, breaking this into relatively few steps. The first is to identify what we understand to be the customer experience lifecycle. And that typically is done by using an internal view, sort of the inside-out view, not the outside-in view. And to be able to go to your internal stakeholders and identify from them what you understand that customer journey to be. So you need that internal view because you've got very experienced people internally who are going to help you understand what that customer is doing. Secondly, you're going to take a look at the current state customer experience journey map from the external view, the outside-in view, and understand that overall customer experience from their standpoint. Take a look at this in terms of other analytics, CRM data, survey data, other types of customer insights. It could come from speech analytics and text analytics. You want to really triangulate these components together. And third, you want to be able to design, based upon both the internal and the external components, based on that customer input, what they really want that customer journey to be. Not just to measure it, not just to identify what you have today, but to be able to design that future state customer journey so that it makes it easy, it makes it intuitive, and it meets their particular requirements. And I think, as Tim said earlier, we're not trying to produce for the customer, but rather meet their expectations in a way that will help them. So what are some of the practical and tactical steps that you can take? Well, start with your internal interviews. Start talking to people within the contact center, within your web teams, areas where you can get some information about what people know to be true about the customer journey from their perspective. Secondly, interview some key customers. Segment them somehow. You don't need a whole lot of interviews, but get their perspective on the interaction points and what interactions are vital to the health of the relationship. What we would call the moments of truth. The things that if you do well, people will stay around, and if you do them poorly, they will move on because there's lots of choices out there. Third, use the analytics that you have. Use surveys. It's a very easy way to start. Look at text analytics to mine all the chat interactions, the survey comments, the social media, as well as speech analytics to really understand what customers are really saying about their interactions, both quantitatively through surveys and qualitatively through some of the unstructured data. Fourth, you want to correlate this data with your CRM and purchase information. It's determine if there are interactions that are predictors of loyalty, and then very importantly, share those findings internally with key stakeholders. You don't want any of this to be a surprise to them. Some of the information may be a surprise. You want to get them to assimilate it and get their buy-in on these findings and ensure accuracy. And then finally, very importantly, work directly with your key customer segments to streamline and define what that desired journey might be. Use it to design it to meet their needs and to be able to also brainstorm new approaches that the customer didn't even think of. Let's improve that experience. Let's meet their experience and also improve upon it. So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into what customer journey mapping is and how you might be able to use it. I encourage you to visit Verint's website at www.verint.com, or please email me at brian.coma@verint.com. Be happy to follow up with you post this, and I look forward to our other presenters today. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for that, Brian. Now let's pass the event over to Brad Snedeker, who is the Innovation Center Manager at Calabrio. Welcome to the broadcast, Brad.
Excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be invited to this conversation. Customer journey mapping is a topic that we're seeing more and more as a buzzword in the industry over the last few years, and it's a trend I'm really excited about. It means we're really laser focused on customer experience and looking at it holistically as something that we can actually use to drive performance within our contact center. So this is a really important topic, and I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm going to be taking a approach of actually looking at ways that we can integrate customer journey mapping into the culture of our contact center, into the culture of our organization, and actually using that as a driver specifically around quality management. So how can we take some of this customer journey mapping information and insights and turn that into actionable things that we can evaluate within the contact center? So my colleagues have done a really good job of kind of setting the groundwork of what a customer journey mapping is and why it's so important. I've got a couple of kind of table setting things, just points I'd like to reiterate a little bit and expand upon. We all understand, of course, that the customer journey is transforming. It's changing rapidly. Customer journey today is very different than it was 5 years ago. We have new tools, new communication channels that are available to people, and going right along with that, we have new expectations that customers have based on those new communication tools and those new channels that people have available to them. Customer journey today is also very different than it will be 5 years ago. So this is not customer journey mapping is not a kind of one and done thing. It's a constantly evolving process, and I think we all understand that, right? Omni-channel, of course, communication and multi-channel communication is a part of that, right? We have multiple different communication channels available to people, and again, the demographics on this are very clear. This is not a trend that's going away anytime soon. People prefer to interact with organizations a lot of times in ways that differ from kind of what we would consider traditional telephony methods. But of course, I think we all understand also that the customer journey in and of itself begins long before a customer actually has a direct interaction with your organization, either walking into a store or picking up the phone and calling your contact center. Most of the time, customer journey realistically really begins with word of mouth, right? Customers hear about a company or a service, a product through a friend, a colleague, a family member, and then that's really where their journey begins. And they're going to go out, like if most people in today's world are going to start to do a little due diligence. Not everybody, but a lot of folks are going to go to the web. They're going to look on that company's website. They're going to go to Google. They're going to go to Amazon. They're going to go to Yelp. Whatever tools happen to be available to them to glean some information about that particular organization. And during this process, they're going to be developing opinions about that organization, about what type of service and what types of expectations they can have when dealing with that organization. And I feel it's really important for us to share that information with our agents in order for them to really and truly be able to drive better customer service experiences. It's important for them to understand that entire journey and that entire process so that they can better relate to the people that they're dealing with on a daily basis. And I'll give you an example of where this is important. Let's say you're an organization that is fortunate enough to have a really positive reputation as far as customer service organization. You're maybe considered to be a world-class customer service organization. Well, if that's the case, customers, again, are going to have that expectation when they come in and do business with your organization. And if they feel that that expectation was not met, it's immediately going to put them off to your organization. Why are all these random people on the internet getting such great service from this company when I'm not? What's different about me? Why don't they value me? Flip side of that coin, let's say you are unfortunate to have a reputation as maybe a less than stellar customer service organization, and customers are going to come in with that expectation, and they're immediately going to be defensive. So even if your agents bend over backwards to provide outstanding customer service to them, regardless of the channel that we're on, the customer might not necessarily be satisfied. And it's important for agents to have a good understanding of that on the different channels of communication that they have in order to, again, be able to provide better customer service. So that's why I feel it's really important for the contact center to be involved in this customer journey mapping process. Obviously the marketing department is usually the driver of this, but the contact center should really be involved. They should be people that we're interviewing during the process, and they should definitely be involved in the report out. Because one, of course, it's really important information for us to have as people that are managing a contact center, but it's also something that we can use as a training tool. We can actually share that customer journey map with our agents so that they understand when they're dealing with a customer and they're explaining a situation to them that they have a really strong understanding of every step that the customer took to get there. That's what's going to allow your agents to better understand your customer's pain points, and it's also what's going to help them to improve your customer journey. Right? They're your front line. They're the people that are there every day listening to customers, so they're one of your best resources for innovation and for being able to find ways to improve your contact center. Because really, to me, what this all boils down to is helping your agents to better understand your customer journey helps them to better empathize with the people that they're dealing with on a daily basis, right? And empathy, if you're in the quality management business, is another buzzword that we're hearing in the industry a lot recently, and again, for very good reasons. The ability to understand and to emulate the feelings of the people that we're dealing with on a regular basis is one of the best ways to engender trust and loyalty with our clients, with our customers. So by being able to truly empathize with our customers, and really the only way we can truly empathize is by having a good understanding, just by the definition of the word, of their journey, this is going to help us provide better customer service. Because while as important as empathy is within the contact center, unfortunately with a lot of organizations that I deal with on a regular basis, empathy, unfortunately, a lot of time is defined as apologizing, and that's really what it boils down to in a lot of cases is, did you apologize for the issue that the customer ran into? Oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. Oh, I'm sorry, let's see if I can help you. I'm sorry, let's get you taken care of. We're apologizing, and then we're immediately going to move to a solution to try to get this person off the phone as quickly as possible. And again, understanding the customer journey makes this it makes this possible, because when we are talking to our customers, again, if it's somebody that does need to get off the phone really, really quickly, we can certainly do that. But if it's somebody that's expressing frustration with our organization, by truly working to understand their issue, we can really help to engender better customer loyalty. So when we're evaluating agents on their empathy, that's really what we should be focused on, is were they really and truly understanding what this customer was getting to? It was the issue that they had, and what was the root cause of that. So how do we actually do that? How can we evaluate agents on their ability to empathize and their ability to understand, again, the customer journey? And again, what a lot of contact centers resort to is apologizing, and that's, of course, when we have a customer that has a particular issue, that's an important part of it. We do want to apologize if they ran into an issue, but beyond that, what we want to do is we want to encourage our agents, if the client is actually open to this, we want to encourage the agent to engage that customer in a dialogue to find out what was the root cause of the issue that you had, and and offering to follow up on that. And that to me is the absolute most important thing, because telling somebody that you understand their issue is one thing, but actually following up on that issue is, in my mind, what really proves that you are engaged in their issue and you actually care and you do actually empathize. So it's one thing to tell the customer, I'm sorry, I'm going to bring this to my supervisor's attention, and then letting it go with that. It's an entirely different thing to tell the customer you're sorry, to tell them that you're going to follow up, and then to actually do that, to actually follow up with an email or a phone call from the agent, or better yet, from their supervisor a day or two later that says, you know, my agent brought this situation to my attention. I want you to know we take this situation absolutely seriously, and we have begun discussions internally to make sure that this doesn't happen to people in the future. And that demonstrates loyalty to that customer and engenders loyalty back, right? So it's a small step that we can take to make that customer really understand that we get their issue, and that we, again, really truly empathize with them, and that we're also dedicated to improving the customer journey, right? That's one of the best resources that we have for improving the overall customer experience. And so really, again, my primary point here is by using the customer journey map as a training tool, it's going to allow our agents to better empathize with their customers and to better relate to them and engender customer loyalty. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time, and I will pass the ball back to David.
All right, thank you for that. Now we have Tim Picard, who is the CMO of New Voice Media, up next. Welcome to the program, Tim.
Thank you, David, and hi everyone. It's a great pleasure to be talking to you today. I want to talk a little bit about some practical, tactical steps that we can use to ensure customer journey success. So if we want to improve customer journeys, we need to look at the root cause of the problem that we're facing today. And I think that Matt Dixon's been mentioned once already on this call from CEB. I think customer effort is one of those big root causes that we need to think about in probably a lot more detail than we have done to date. So if you look at what are the most frustrating aspects of a poor customer service experience, it's pretty frustrating, to be honest, for us in the industry, but also, I guess, for our customers as well, because, you know, I look at that list and I could be looking at a list that was the same list 5 to 7 years ago. So at the top of the list, having to contact a company multiple times for the same reason. You know, I've seen that many, many times for many, many years, being passed from agent to agent, impolite customer service. Customer service rep or self-service that cannot answer my question. So here we're looking at slightly more from a multi-channel point of view. And I think as we start to move away from call center to contact center to customer engagement center, those journeys and those multiple channels or omni-channel become really significant in terms of how we manage that customer experience and that customer journey. So all of this is about putting barriers in front of customers, and that's what really creates the frustration from our customers' perspective. So making effort high as far as customers are concerned is a real problem, and what we need to do is to try and move away from that and move into an area where our customers are experiencing lower effort. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on was around measurement and kind of the difference from NPS and customer effort. NPS has been used a lot and talked about a lot over the years, and I think there's a difference between NPS and customer effort in terms of where you would use them. NPS seems to me to be much more of a strategic element around measuring your customer satisfaction, and should be used infrequently and in the right circumstance. So after a key element of that relationship, so whether that's onboarding or renewal, or after a customer complaint. And the purpose is to test the strength of the relationship that you have with your customers. And it's the question, would you recommend this company, this service, to a colleague or friend? And asking that question at very often throughout the relationship or throughout the journey is really not the right thing to do. So customer effort gets a quick insight into things that are irritating to customers or giving customers a good feeling about your organization. Given what you wanted to do today, well, whatever that might have been, purchasing something from your website, talking to a live agent, how easy was it for you to do this thing? A score of 1 to 7 normally, and a description or a verbatim will give you some more detail around the particular element that you're talking about of your service. So I think those things are different and should be used in different ways. So just to touch on how we're doing in terms of managing customer experience, and I think this chart is really interesting. So the data is 2000 to 2012. It's from CEB. It's a sample size of just over 1,000, 1,200, and it really shows us that things are pretty flat in terms of customer experience, customer satisfaction, even though organizations have invested millions of dollars in trying to manage that customer relationship. And I'm going to come on and talk about why I think that is later on in this in my section. So just keep that slide in mind for a second. Just a little bit more around kind of how we measure customer effort. As you can see there, coming up higher than Net Promoter Score. So I think for the reasons that I already talked about. But I also think that 3 above customer effort is agent satisfaction. And this is something that I think a lot of companies should focus more around, because happy agents make happy customers. And I think there is some basic logic around that that's kind of indisputable. So let me talk a little bit now about making effort a daily focus. So I think as we build this out, you can see that we're looking at kind of upstream and downstream elements to happy customers. And I think if you plotted this out across your organization, what you would want to see would be a kind of a bell curve that rose pretty sharply and tailed off relatively sharply as well. Because at the one end of this spectrum, we have litigation and social crisis. This is somewhere where we don't want to be in terms of the outcome of our dealings with our customers. But it does happen. The thing is that during that journey, we should be able to pick up that experience and manage that appropriately to the customer well before we get to this point, because litigation clearly is going to cost the organization money, and social crisis is clearly going to have a negative impact on the brand. So these are areas where we truly want to avoid. If we think about the continuum coming back from that, it's complaint, and managing complaints and managing that process is really important to avoid going down the path of litigation and social damage. And clearly, again, we've been through a process with our customers, and we don't want to move to that point. 2x the time resolution, and moving back, we can see that we get to kind of multiple transfers and those types of things that we saw that really irritated customers during that process. So as we move along the continuum, first-time resolution, this is something that most organizations, or a lot of people, feel that is their goal. What I'm saying is that I think in the reality of the digital world is this is not zero effort for our customers. Their journey will have started way before this point. And one of the previous speakers mentioned taking an outside-in view of your customer journey. I think that's a really critical way to do this, because if you're measuring the point at which your customer has the live customer interaction, that probably isn't the point at which they first interacted with you. So that could be a second or third time resolution for the customer, which we are still counting as a first time resolution in our customer engagement center. So I think that's the wrong way to manage this and to think about that. I'm going to come back to customer situation because I think that's one that we could spend just a little bit more time talking about and thinking about. And then outbound proactive customer service is clearly moving towards a much more So we're looking at the inbound situation is recognized now. And this I think deserves a little bit more discussion because in the live customer service, as the previous speaker said, empathy is great, and we should train our agents and select our agents to be able to empathize with customers. But the ability to be able to understand the customer situation, to understand the journey that they have currently been on to get to the point where they are now in a live service interaction is really important. And I'm going to refer back to CEB again and some work that they did about live customer interactions. And also refer back to that previous slide that said, actually, we've spent millions of dollars in trying to improve customer service and without a huge payback. And I think this is the reason. The reason is because we're focusing on that live service interaction, which is 47% of the whole customer interaction. The customer situation, the 53% is where we should be focusing more of our attention. So it's that customer journey. How did I get to this point? And that's really important, both for the customer in terms of resolving their problem, but also from the agent in terms of being able to do that. So being able to understand that the customer tried to purchase something from the website, was unable to do it, has looked at our FAQs, was unable to do it, and now has made that live service interaction. That's very frustrating. It's much easier for the agent to be sympathetic, empathetic, and resolve the problem if they know what that journey has been. And the technology to understand that is clearly available and should be available to the agent to be able to make sure that that live service interaction is the best service interaction that we can possibly give. And I think that slide, if you take nothing else away from this, is really critical in terms of managing the customer journey, understanding, and then being able to do something about it. So know-me routing is a term that we use, which is essentially to be able to understand who our customers are, understand the journey that they've been on, and to tag them with various assets as they move through to a customer engagement center to be able to deliver that live customer experience with the knowledge of all of the things that they have been through to that point, which makes the live service interaction so much more effective. So with that, I'm going to wrap. I think taking effort out of getting stuff done for the customers is the fastest way to optimize journeys. I think that whole live experience with the customer situation really makes that possible. So David, back to you. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you for that, Tim. Now, I do have some questions that I'd like to ask our presenters, but I would also like to encourage our viewers to submit any questions for our four presenters as well. If you have a question, just simply type it in the question box provided and click on the submit button. As I stated earlier, all questions will be answered all questions that are not answered during the live presentation will be answered via email. All right, so my first question is for Brian Coma at Verint. Brian, what are the biggest advantages to using a journey map?
Well, one of the things that I found, and it's a very, very good question, is it allows you to visualize things for the executive team, as well as for people who, again, may not be involved with the customer experience, and makes it easy for them to understand. I mean, all of us here on the call, we talk about lots of different concepts, we use buzzwords, but yet a lot of our colleagues don't necessarily understand that. And so making it real and giving them a single place to go, none of us have a whole lot of time anymore to really delve into things, and a customer journey map can give you a great means of visualizing what your customer is going through, showing where the points of pain are, and getting people's attention on it.
All right, thanks for that. Another question for you. If a company hasn't done journey mapping before, where should it start?
Well, I always tell them to start internally first because it's so much easier to get information. When you start going out and having to talk to customers, you may have to go through several approval cycles. I think all of us here work for relatively large organizations, and sometimes getting those approvals through the right people can be a challenge, but if you start internally, you can make some progress. One of the things I encourage people to think about very strongly is look for the quick wins. Don't overcomplicate it, and get some information that you can then use to turn back externally as well.
All right, thanks for that. Let's now bring Tim Peters into the discussion. Tim, can virtual agents, you talked about virtual agents, can virtual agents also be used internally by employees?
Oh, hey, David. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, more and more so we're seeing that. It's an interesting use of the actual technology that started off, almost like an interesting use, but it's become a new deployment method. And when you think about it, if you can empower your frontline employees like call center agents to also ask questions in a natural language way and get one right answer, it's really powerful versus having to sort through a complicated CRM or look through documents. So we're seeing more and more of that. Actually, we have a large global top 10 telco that deployed it recently for about 5,000 contact center agents. So not what we really had in mind initially, as we've really pioneered this technology over the past 10 years or so, but it makes sense, and we're seeing more and more of it, and it works really well. The agents and internal folks tend to really love it because it's kind of very elegant and simplistic and delivers results. So yeah, we are seeing more and more of that.
All right, thanks. Another question for you. Tim, how long does it take to deploy a virtual agent?
Yeah, so it's, generally we're looking at 60 to 90 days, depending on the size and scope of the actual deployment. But, this is technology being deployed for large Fortune 500 type organizations, so it's a relatively quick turnaround. There's usually an optimization period as well, so we're trying to figure out, we work very closely with the customers to optimize that virtual agent and the answers it's responding to for customers. So you'll see an accuracy rate maybe start at 85% and then jump to 90 to 95% over those first few months as well, and then really smooth sailing from there. But it's a pretty turnkey solution, usually in that 60 to 90 day mark.
Great, thank you for that, Tim. Let's bring Brad from Calabrio into the discussion. Brad, you focus a lot on making agents central to the customer journey process. Why do you feel involving the agents is so important?
Yeah, actually, so this is one of the topics that I probably evangelize more than any other when I'm talking to customers and kind of giving recommendations on ways that they can improve, is to involve your agents. And really, I think this is a recommendation I have with just about any process that's organizationally related, workforce management, quality management. Get your agents involved. And the reason I feel that's so important is that your agents, as I mentioned before, they're really your front line. They're your first line of defense that is dealing with customers on a daily basis. They hear every single day what's working for customers, what's not, what are their pain points, what are the things that we can improve to make their experience better. And so when we're talking about customer journey mapping, again, I feel this is incredibly important. We want to encourage our agents to be looking at the customer's journey holistically, not just their tiny little part of their interaction, but the entire journey that customer had, because that is how we're going to be able to really drive innovation and improvements within our contact center. And encouraging agents to take a part in that, one, gives us a really great insight, but also the second part is it helps your agents feel that they're a more valued part of the organization, which directly leads to happier agents, which leads to better customer service, better turnover, all of the wonderful things that go along with having happier agents. So involving your agents in your processes, I feel, is really important.
And can you give some specific examples of evaluation from questions that allow you to evaluate an agent's understanding of the customer journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're creating evaluation, and we want to again evaluate agents' ability to understand the customer journey and of agents' ability to empathize with the issue that we're having, we want to think about again what's our root driver? What are we really trying to drive towards? And again, the goal here is we want to drive better customer empathy, and we also want to drive improvements within the contact center. So really what we want to be looking for is we want to be asking questions like, did the agent, if the customer was expressing frustration, did the agent drive to the root cause? Did they ask questions trying to find the root cause of the issue instead of rather, as opposed to just apologizing? And the other thing is, if they promised to follow up with this customer, did they actually follow up, right? And these things are yes, no, not or not applicable if it's not a frustrated customer. But the other key thing is to really motivate our agents to focus on this. We want to make sure that these types of questions are what we at Calabria we refer to as key performance indicators. These are questions that can drive the entire score of an evaluation. So let's say in the example I gave in my talk where we wanted the customer we needed to follow up with them and send them a follow-up email. If we actually did that, if we actually sent a follow-up email to that customer, then that's an immediate 100% pass. This is exactly what we want you to do from a customer service perspective. So utilizing things like key performance indicator questions can really help to drive that type of behavior.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Now let's bring Tim Picard into the discussion. Tim, how do you measure the customer experience?
So there are lots of ways to measure customer experience, but I think the two that I talked about are probably two of the best ways of doing it. So, but I think they are distinctly different. So NPS, I would say, was much more of a strategic measurement that you would use after an event, a particular event. And this is the would you recommend question, 1 to 6 answers being negative, 7 to 8 neutral, 9 to 10 being positive. And for anybody who's used to working with customers around NPS, you look at it and you see 8, a score of 8, and the description says, I love your product, it's great, it's brilliant. You think, oh, yeah, but if only it was a 9 because 9s are positive and 8s are neutrals. And so it can get a little frustrating. But the one that's coming to the fore more is around customer effort and the question around how easy was it for you to do whatever it is that you've been trying to do. And I think that's the one that you can use in a more regular way. Plus also you get the description around that and the verbatim kind of commentary around that gives you a lot more feedback and I think to some extent can provide a greater use, particularly when we're talking about journeys and about the experience along that journey.
All right, another question for you, Tim. How do you optimize multi-channel communication?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I think I would first point out or look at the difference between multi-channel and omni-channel, and I think it's an important distinction and one that often gets blurred. So multi-channels we would describe as being kind of siloed communications channels, technically, but also kind of logically, and omni-channel being the more kind of context aware. So in other words, I know that you've used social media, you've used our website, you've used you're now in a live service interaction, and I can pull those things together. I think that is a really important part of how to optimize that, because it allows you to be able to amalgamate the customer experience or see the customer experience in one place. The other thing, and this is a technical kind of issue, is around having a single queue that manages all of those communications. So not dividing that up, if you like, into multiple queues, but having a single queue that you can then prioritize across all of those different channels of communications. Now that is relatively complex to do, but it provides a much better customer experience.
All right, great, thank you. I think top of the hour, but there's a question here that I get to from one of my viewers, and I'd like to direct it first to, at Brian, and then Tim, if you can add anything to it, that'd be great. I know there's a lot of stats that can help with this question, and the question is, CEOs and CFOs think in dollars spent and earned. How do we get them to think in customers won or lost? Brian, why don't you kick that off?
Yeah, that question is spot on. I just came from a big CX conference last week. It was the #1 topic of discussion. people in customer experience have a tendency to look at goodwill that's built. We have to do a far better job of identifying what is the value of that customer, what is the lifetime value of a customer coming in, what is churn rates, attaching dollar values or some economic value to it, looking at also the cost of calls and calls deflected. These are all ways that you can quantify what you've done. We had one customer who quantified that they were able to save $300 million by doing a better job of identifying self-service opportunities on their website. And so by doing that, they justified not only their existence, but also further investment in looking at the customer journey and looking at ways to improve it. So very, very important question, and one which a lot of people are asking right now.
All right, thanks for that. Tim Peters, I know that Intela Response has a number of stats on this, and I'm wondering if you can share any of that information with this.
Yeah, no, definitely happy to, and I definitely completely agree with what Brian said, and really trying to quantify with those hard numbers. That makes us all as customer, we get a seat at the table with some of the other folks on our leadership teams if we can really bring some hard statistics to these conversations. And to share a few, because we really specialize in that web self-service and reducing calls with emails, so we spend a lot of time doing that type of research. And even if you're not quite there yet, you don't maybe know the cost of what it does, to handle a call or an email internally at your contact center. There's a lot of higher level stats out there that you can use at least to start getting folks' attention. So, one that I've seen recently is that 82% of Americans will stop using a brand due to a poor customer experience. So, how powerful is that to open up a conversation with your peers at your organization? And then, start to dig a little deeper after that. Figure out what your fully loaded cost is for an agent to handle an email, to handle a customer support call, and you can start to figure out the math if you can right channel some of those folks to self-service with a technology like a virtual agent or other self-service technologies. So, there is more and more research out there. I definitely recommend folks take a look. If you do want to come to IntelaResponse.com, we have quite a few great blogs on there to get folks started as well, but definitely agree with Brian that, there is those hard numbers out there, and it's worth putting the effort in to figure that out. It'll make your arguments and your presentations that much more powerful to that senior leadership team if you do the homework and get those numbers nailed down.
All right, thank you for that. We are now at the top of the hour. We actually went a couple of minutes over, but we had some great questions, and I appreciate our viewers submitting those. Thanks also to our presenters, Tim Peters, Director of Marketing, Intela Response, a 24/7 company, Brian Coma, VP and Customer Experience Practice Leader at Verint, Brad Tnedeker, Innovation Center Manager at Calabrio, and Tim Picard, CMO at New Voice Media.